Annyeong, it's Mikey here, and today we're coming back with another Holophonic keyboard, and this time we have to thank Akko. Akko sent me out the Mod68, and this is supposed to be a aluminum case gaming keyboard with 8K with the Astro Aim switches. Saw that it had some really interesting gaming keycap designs, so let's go straight into the unboxing. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and it would be really cool if you join the Discord. So starting off with the unboxing of the Akko Mod68. Now thank you again, Akko, for sending this out. So we're going to be trying out their newest Holophonic boards, and this is going to be the 68. I'll also be doing a one on the 75% board as well. Now, in the accessories box, all you're getting is a cable, the keycap puller, switch puller, and a tool to open up the case, which kind of seems kind of empty, right? Like, you have such a big accessories box, and there's not really much in there. So that's something I was kind of surprised about. Now, next thing, you do get a manual, so you do have that. And overall, I really think that the packaging is kind of just alright. The board itself doesn't feel too heavy, but I was actually quite surprised that there wasn't really much else in there. And another thing I noticed was that this one had a wireless mode, just looking at the manual. So I had to take a look to see, is there a USB dongle in there? Did I get a wireless version or not? So I wanted to just double check on that. And when I looked inside the box, there's no USB dongle. So obviously I think I got the wired version. But just in case, let's double check in the keycap section as well, because how Akko works is they always have it under the caps. And no, this is the wired version only. But of course, we're going to weigh it real quick before we go into sound test. And this thing weighs a total of 1.05 kg. So we did the whole sound test. We're just coming back to doing like a teardown of it, or let's try to do a teardown of it. This thing has an alu plate in there, so that's something actually I prefer in terms of Holophonic boards. And overall, the build quality seems to be pretty decent. It is an aluminum case, and it has this areas where you have the screws. So 4 screws on the left side, 4 screws on the right side, and the hexagonal shaped one is actually kind of small. So you have to make sure you get the right size to fit, but I mean, they provide you a tool anyways. So we're going to get out all the screws and then of course try to see how we can take this apart. Now, one thing that I noticed is that getting all the sides out, this thing is really difficult to push out. I actually don't think it's possible. So I was hoping there might be a way, because obviously this is kind of like a sandwich. You remember the Skylung one that I did before, the GK68 aluminum? That one was like a sandwich as well, where it's you push it out from the side and it just slides in. This one, I could not for the life of me find a way to open this up. I was actually opening and taking off like the feet, just because, you know, sometimes there might be screws underneath there, like maybe I'm missing something, but this thing is completely packed inside and there's no way for me to get this open. Like, there was not a single way for me to just like take it apart or be able to push it out. So unfortunately for me, I'm not able to do a teardown on the specific board for you guys. My apologies on that. I was hoping maybe there might be a way, but on the Mod68, there's gonna be almost no ways for you guys to open this up to do any mods or anything. And there's not even any space inside, to be honest, to do the kind of mods. Now, I can't even check to see if the PCB is a specific type of like flex cut or not. So that's something that's unfortunate. You do get plate mounted stabilizers with this. So that's one of the reasons why like I'm skipping over a lot of the parts that I normally would do in the middle of this video, because normally I want to mod or do all those things, but there's nothing I could do with this board. It's decently lubed in terms of the stabilizers, and I would say like on the backside where the wires are, you get a little bit of lube, And then in the front, where you actually are having the wire go into the stem of the stabilizer, you have a better lubing there. The thing is, the backspace, enter, all those things have a decent sound in terms of like the stabilizer, but the spacebar, as you could have heard right there from the left side of it, is gonna have this really bad like ping to it, ting to it. It's just not the greatest sound for that. So what I would highly recommend is adding some extra loop into the stabilizers there, just because it has a very loud clack noise almost to it that is not great stock. And in general, the Astro Aims, I'm gonna be honest with this board, the switches are not the nicest sounding switches stock wise. So you have to keep in mind, this thing does require some work, and it's unfortunate that we can't even mod this board. But once you do add some lube, it does help with the stabilizers in terms of spacebar, but it's still not perfect. Like, you're still gonna have a little bit of issues with it. And I'm sure you could have heard from the case right there that it has some of that ting from aluminum, a little bit of hollow sound. And as you could have heard, the top out sound on this one is actually pretty quiet. So you're not getting a ton of top out sound on these holofix switches after you lube them, but they're gonna have some issues in terms of like the sound wise. When you press down, not that great. It's almost like a top out sound, but when you're pressing down. Now these switches, once you lube them, are actually pretty quiet. So overall, these switches, like the Astro Aims with this board, you're actually gonna be looking at around less than 60 decibels, averaging around the 58 decibel point. So not too bad in terms of like loudness. If you want something quieter, this definitely has a little bit of that quiet sound to it. And then we're going to measure out the actual angles and how big the front is and the back is. So, you know, some people out there might prefer a shorter angle or maybe a higher angle in terms of like the height of the front and the back. So the front of this board is going to be 19.5 if you don't count the feet. Once you do count the feet though, you're going to be looking at like 21 millimeters in terms of the front height. So that's going to be a decent height to the board itself. And then when we look at the back as well, so we're going to measure the back angle as well. And the back height is going to be about 30.4, so 30.3, 30.4 millimeters in terms of that back height. So just keep in mind for yourselves for this board, especially if you're someone who might prefer a specific type of height to the board. This one I would say is on the more on the average side. It's not going to be too high, but it's not going to be on the low side either. And the front height is actually pretty reasonable, I would say, for most users out there. Now, the thing about this board, I feel the things I can comment on is the fact that it's really difficult to open up, and it's impossible almost to actually get it out of the case itself to really do any mods or anything to it. And you're gonna have to lube the switches for this. The switch stock wise is actually super scratchy, like incredibly scratchy, and not the greatest feel to it. The overall CNC on this board is not too bad. I wouldn't say it's the best CNC that I've seen, but a decent job done for this board. Also, make sure you do fix up the stabilizers because they're not gonna be great. And it's really cool that they do provide like this little, you know, sponge there that comes out of the plate. I think it's just to help with the dampening of the board. So there's a lot of dampening that is available on this thing. Now going into the backlighting of it. So the backlighting of the board is decently bright, but only on the see-through keycaps. Once you actually get to the keycaps with actual like no see-through to it or the shine through to them, you're gonna get like no lighting to them. So as you can see here at like 10%, you get like nothing, very, very dim. And then once you go up, it starts getting brighter and brighter, but you have to only have the shine through keycaps. If you don't, you're gonna have almost no lighting that comes through. So as you can see, the price is about 107 USD. So that's priced in USD there. It's on sale right now. Where like when I'm looking at it at today's date, when I'm doing the editing, it's $91 for sale. But there's a lot of colors that are currently not available, and you also can do ISO or ANSI for this one. So there's different versions available. and it also has a wireless version as well as a wired version. So the wireless is actually going to be pricier at $139. So that's something to, or 137, sorry, dollars that you're actually going to be able to choose between the two. And as you can see here, has like a 16,000 scan rate, 8,000 polling rate, which we'll do a bit of a keyboard inspector test later. And you can choose up to the actuation point of 0.005 is what they're saying. That's going to be hard to really say to test exactly, because that's like a very, very, very short travel in terms of the actual board itself. It has the ARM, the processing on the board itself, just like the Monsgeek one that they're actually, I believe, using very similar chips. And this one though is not a TMR like hybrid board, so you can't actually use mechanical switches with this one. I think that was kind of a mistake. I think if they were going to do this board, they really should have worked with how the Monsgeek did it with the Fun 60 and allowed for that hybridness, especially if you're doing wireless, and especially if they're doing like a specific board like this. You know, it would have been just a much better idea to do so. The software itself, so we're going into the software, and sorry that parts of it actually got cut off. I didn't really realize that when I was recording it, but the software is okay. It's like the basic kind of software. I don't really think that it's that great. And as you can see here, I don't know why, but this page was bugging out completely for me, where like you see all that stuff moving there. I'm not sure what was going on. You do have, you know, the actuation point settings, and it's not difficult to change them. And you also have calibrations for certain switches that you have available there. So there's certain things that are available, but overall, it's not the best software that I've seen. I think that these board itself could really use a better software. I think Akko really should put a lot more work into improving their software. I mean, it has everything that you kind of need in terms of like the advanced settings, you know, setting up the actuations. But one thing it is missing is profiles. So they really should work into putting profiles in there. I think nowadays profile settings is a mandatory thing, and they have the board that's capable of saving the memory inside of the board. They really should go look into adding some profiles in there as well. And I can find like the key or the swap to actually change it. So that's just an unfortunate thing about, you know, what I've noticed with the software. And I was hoping that it improved a lot more since I last used it, but there's definitely that issue. One other issue is this custom coloring. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. For some reason, like it kept coming up as white, even though you can see it on the software. Then I changed it to like a light brownish color, and yet it definitely isn't something that was working. So something to also keep in mind for those that have that coloring. And yeah, as I said, like the software is having some weird buggy issues for me. I mean, it might just be me. It might not be everyone. It might just be for myself. But let's check out the polling rate. And with the polling rate, we have to keep in mind that the scan rate is going to be on the higher side of 16,000. So we're going to get a much larger number, but we're looking at the board actually being able to pull off a higher polling rate. I changed it to 1,000 to see and test would it actually get 1,000, but no. So for some reason, it's still with the scan rate getting a higher number. So just keep in mind that I'm not too sure how it would work with that, and I'm hoping that it doesn't affect people that actually have a board that you know, especially for the computer that has a hard time using 8K. Now, using it in Apex though, right, I'm like testing out super gliding, which is what I really use a lot of the rapid trigger for, you know, setting up perfect actuation points just makes myself easier to do super gliding in the game, because it's very imperfect, and also picking up items quicker. You know, I just want that little bit of advantage. It still works fine. So does that mean like this Akko board doesn't work as a holific board? No, it definitely works, right? You're getting the performance that you need with the polling rate and the latency of it, and also you do get like the actuations that's required. As you can see, like I set up everything, and even with this where it's recoil smoothing in Apex, you know, if you move or spam AD, sometimes you can actually quickly, you know, recoil smooth with that as well. And here I set up the advanced settings to make sure the snap tap works, and it works perfectly fine. So if I snap tap, you know, it's going to be the last input, then I press A and then I hold D, and it's still working without any issues. So you are getting all the things that you need with this board in terms of a holific board, right? Like the things that you'd want to have with a holific board. So you can see right here, everything's working perfectly fine, and it's going off of the last input without any issues. So yeah, I would say the Akko, you know, we're going to really go in here and compare it on my, we can really see here, right, comparing the prices and looking at other boards here now. So the Akko sits at like supposed to be 117, 137. And then we have the IPI board. We have, different boards out there that I've tried, like the Lumen Key, as well as the old Akko board. And we have the Sky Lung at like 75 to 126. The thing is like when you consider these pricings and you compare it with the Akko, it's really hard for me to say that the Akko board is really going to be the best one to grab, because even the Fun 60 has a cheaper price but also provides a lot more, and they even have a newer version which is supposed to be like the Fun 68, so like you have a 65% version as well. For two brands that are technically like working with each other, it's really hard to compete when one's really priced much better and has a little bit better features with it. I actually prefer the Fun 60 over this, and as you can see here, right, like I think I gave it a 6.5 out of 10 for the software because it was just so basic and it didn't have like the profile settings, and overall the software didn't feel very, very intuitive to me. Like it didn't feel great comparatively with a lot of the other softwares I've tried. It's just a very basic software. This typing sound as well, I gave it a 7 out of 10, and that's like the stock switches are so scratchy. You would really have to actually put in the effort, and even 7 was giving it a lot. I ended up changing my mind and going with a 6 out of 10 because these stock Astro aims are just so scratchy and not good for this. I really think that you have to actually lube them quite a lot and make sure to lube the springs or you're going to have a hard time. So it's a bit hard for me to say with this one just because they have a Mods Geek Fun 68 that's available, and this one is missing a lot of the extra features that one has, but at a pricier price range. So I really do wish that they kind of look into this and really improve in the process of what they're looking at doing. Now overall, I hope this video helps you guys to see whether or not the Akko is a board for you. My goal in terms of these reviews is really give you guys pros and cons of everything, give you guys my thoughts, and then make a decision yourself. Remember this, no matter how many people say certain boards are like the best or whatever, it really will come down to personal preference at a certain point. Of course, there's some boards out there that like I would say, oh yeah, no, this is really something that you shouldn't grab. And then some boards I might be like, wow, this is really, really good. A lot of the boards I find are still like more in the middle, where there's like pros and cons for things, and it really comes to your personal preference. I'll have the links in the description for you guys to check it out yourselves. It would be really awesome if you join the Discord, really be able to build a community there that's quite wholesome actually. And I'd love to talk to you guys there as well, because I'm going to be more active there than I am on comments. Please go check out the other videos I got, and I'll have to catch you guys next time.